Hey everybody, Synthetic Future here, and today we're going to take a little look at the H-cards by Hypersynth. I'm going to preemptively say I'm not a big fan of the autofocus on this lens, so I'm going to manual focus and we're just going to pray everything turns out in focus. So let's start with what is the H-card. It's this thing, this is the old version. It's basically a memory card for the Roland D-50. But they have a few other models as well. So there's the D-50 model, and they also have one for, let's see, here we go, the X7, the X7 II, D-50, and the DX5 and DX1. Now these cards are not by any means cheap. In fact, they are fairly expensive. But you have to remember that the original cards aren't all that cheap as well, and they can be very hard to come by, let alone that they may or may not be functioning anymore. There's always the risk of being corrupted or dropped or damaged. So it's a fairly good alternative, and also these things will hold a ton of data, so you can really put a lot of patches in there. So let's start off with the very basics. I'm going to assume everyone knows it, but first off you need to connect your D-50 with MIDI. MIDI somehow always confuses people, but it's not all that hard. You want to send MIDI out of the D-50 into your interface. So you connect the out to the in. And you want to send it from the interface into the keyboard. So you connect the out of the interface to the in of the keyboard. That's basically the entire trick. A quick way to test it is just to play anything. And if you see a note flash, you're doing good. That's the basic check for MIDI, is if you see things flash when you play things, you've done a good job. So that's the MIDI setup, that's very easy. Now we have that in place. I will first show you how the H-card works. So it will look a little bit different in the new versions, but it will function the exact same. You can press the little buttons to change the memory card. So there are 64 cards in here in total. And if you long hold, it will jump 10 cards. So if I go to 0, long hold, 10, 20, 30, etc. And now that I have a card selected, I can press the card button on the D-50 and it will load that specific card. And if I change the card here, press the card button again, it will load that specific card. And any card can hold up to 8x8 patches, that's the exact same as the normal D-50. Probably need to turn it up a little bit. There we go. And getting these patches is a little bit of a grey-ish area. Obviously buying them is pretty much impossible these days, so you can basically only download them. I think that for things that are this old and this unsupported, people really shouldn't complain when you download things. Just to be on the safe side, I will not link to the download locations. They are just a Google away. Just Google for D-50 patches downloads and you will find the complete collection by some archiving website, which I may actually be able to just name. The Cult of D-50. So just search for that and you will probably find them. So once you have your patches, we actually need to get into the software side of things, because loading things onto the H-card is a little bit weird. You have to load it into the memory of the D-50 first, then you can transfer it to the card. So it's a little bit of a back and forwards little game, but it's not too hard once you've done it a couple of times. So let me get you into the computer and let's talk about software and stuff. Okay, so the software you need is the D-50 librarian. It's a free download, so you can just grab that. It's a pretty straightforward little program. The first thing you need to do when you open the program the first time is you will get a pop-up asking you which controls to use. So that will look a little like this. Now the way I have it set up is with the port 1 of the micro. So I can just say the input is port 1, the output is port 1, and that's all set. It's pretty straightforward. Now there's two operations we can do. We can either receive information from the D-50 or send information to the D-50. So the first thing we do is we make sure that anything that is on the D-50 is actually backed up. That's pretty important. Now the factory patches is not the biggest deal, you can easily re-download them. But if you have anything custom made, you want to definitely pull that from the D-50. So let's start there. So we ask to receive from the D-50 and we'll already give a very helpful little prompt. It says in order to initiate bulk dump, press the data transfer button, hold the data transfer and press the B dump. And then we say OK. And we will see the glorious little bits being, or bytes being received. Makes you really appreciative of USB technology because it's rather slow, but there we go. We have received all the patches currently in memory. Now if we want to back this up, we can simply say save, and we can store it somewhere in a safe spot. So that's our first little step. All right. Now that we have a backup of our current in-memory stuff, we can start loading into the HCard. So we need to make sure we have an empty slot for the HCard, and this we can check by going to any slot. I know that 20 is empty, so we'll go to 20, and if I press the card, I will get the init patch, and I will actually get the init patch no matter which patch I choose. So we now know that we have an empty spot in the D-50. Cool. Now we will open a completely legally obtained card for the D-50. So we'll go to our D-50 bank and we will take any of these banks. Let's just do something random. New Age. Sounds amazing. Open it up. And these are all the patches contained in this specific bank. Now it's a good idea if you have a lot of these patch banks to make notes of which ones you have transferred where, because there's no easy way to read it out of the card. So you can lose track fairly easily, so just make a notepad or Excel or whatever you feel comfortable with, or just take a piece of paper and write it down, whatever works for you. First step is sending this patch bank to the D-50, so we say send to D-50. Once again it will give us a little bit of a explainer, and it says in this case we need to initiate bulk loading on the D-50. So it says we need to press the data transfer, then hold data transfer and press B load. And we will get the message saying that the memory is currently protected, which is actually quite nice that it does that. And to fix this we can go to tune/function right under the little joystick thingamabob. It will say protect, and we can turn this by pressing the little button, decrease it to off. There we go. So now the protection is off and we can retry data transfer, hold data transfer and press the B load. Are you sure? Yep, we are sure. And we can press send. And right now the librarian is sending to the D-50. Mission completed. Take a couple of minutes, seconds, hours. You never know. It's still loading. Completed. Super cool. So now our internal memory is overwritten. And if we double check, we see synthfox sweep free. I'm not sure how readable this is, but it says that. And it also says that on the screen. So if we move to, let's say, to 4, so this is bank 2, 4, we get Vortex. That seems to check out. So now we have our patches from the computer in the D-50, and now we can move them into the HCard. So to do this, we once again go to Data Transfer, Internal to Card. Are we sure? Yes, we are. And the nice thing of this card is that it is very fast. As you can see, that only took a second. Unlike the transfer from the computer, which took quite a while, this is almost instantly. So now we can actually check this by opening the card. It will say C for card, I for internal. Card stays on Vortex. So now that we're in card, we can move to 3.1, 3.1 Winter Bells. And there we go. As easy as that, we can load patches into the memory of the HCard. So now we have 64 memory cards of D-50 presets to play around with. The only minor downside of this system is you have to keep track of the cards you have and where the patches are, so that can be a little bit complicated, especially with 64 cards. Slightly easier with 64 physical cards because they will have labels. So that's something you need to find a system for. So once again, Excel, database software, paper, whatever floats your boat. But that's the basic premise of the HCard. I think it's a very nice invention. It works very fast. I wish it was available for more synthesizers, so everybody could have this pleasure with old synthesizers of having tons of patches to their disposal. I don't know how active the guys at Hypersynth are. I do remember that when I bought mine, it was basically a waiting list. And when the opportunity arose, you had to be pretty fast, or they sold out. That's basically what it boiled down to. So I think it's a little bit better now because they are actually in stock. But it's still a very small batch specific product. So this video will probably not get a lot of views, but still worth sharing, I think. So that's a little look at the HCard by Hypersynth, a little look at the D-50 librarian, and a shout out to the cult of D-50 for morally grey stuff they do. But I don't mind it, I think it's awesome. Yeah, that's my video. Any questions, drop them down below, leave a like, whatever, and see you around.